So, hello Andy.
Hi, Hannah.
So, as we start this conversation, let's set the context that our churches are in. So, do you want to talk a little bit about where
Well, we're sat in Sacred Trinity. So this is my church, half-time job here I have, because I'm half-time with Heart Edge. And this is City Centre Church. So we're proud of the fact that we're in Salford, but we're effectively in the city centre. And a churning congregation, which has been a big factor for us over the pandemic, is the fact that lots of people have moved away and new people moving into the area all the time.
Yeah, I would have thought that would be the sort of case in this sort of area.
So what about where you are?
So, I am potentially at the opposite end of the spectrum. So, I've come in from the Turton Moreland team all the way on the edge of Bolton, and the edge of the diocese really. Part of our physical location is actually in Blackburn Authority, but we're all on Manchester Diocese. And so we're a team of churches. It's rural, it's affluent, and our congregations are fairly static because people move, they stay. We've got a lot of families that come for schools and things like that. But I haven't been there for the entire pandemic. I only went there last summer after I was ordained deacon. And prior to that, when I was an ordinand, I was on placement in Bury Parish Church, which is a town centre church, completely different again. Their sort of parish doesn't have much of a resident population. People tend to travel to come to the church there. And so the setups for what we've got digitally and what we're doing locally, I've been in two very different locations, in two different setups, and I imagine that yours is different again.
Yeah. What does the digital output mean to you then? What's digital church all about?
So for me, before I was an ordinand, I was a teacher. And I actually, by the time I got to the end of my teaching career, I was teaching a lot of functional skills ICT. So for me, digital tools has been primarily about accessibility and connectivity and being able to keep in touch and things like that. And so I think digital church, one of the things that is key is building community, but not just in our parishes and it being insular for our congregation. I think one of the beauties of being able to do stuff digitally is that it can be outward facing as well, and you're facing out into the community. You know, we're churches for a parish, not just churches for our own congregation and our own members. Being able to face outwards, and anything that we produce and any content that we've got has been outward facing and reaching out almost in a missional sense to others that wouldn't necessarily encounter the church otherwise. They wouldn't choose to come into the building, but what we've given them is actually a glimpse into our buildings, into our church life, into so when I was in Bury, one of the things that we did was we streamed the services, so we're seeing into the services and this is what goes on, and that's offering a level of comfort for those that either can't come or that would be a little bit wary about coming into a church. And where I am now in Turton, what we do is we produce a video each week, but that's all about our community, our wider team, and it's pulling in, there's images of the local area, and it's not just all from inside the church. So I think being outward facing as well as being an opportunity to worship and maintain connectivity for our congregations has been something that's been a real driver for all the bits that I've been involved in.
Brilliant, yeah. I mean, we certainly find in an area where there are new people moving in all the time, for us, the digital content that we put out is kind of our shop window, if you like. It's what people access the first. And we do get, I mean, every week at the moment, we're getting new people coming along to church. They don't always come back because they're often they're just checking us out. They're checking out other churches as well because we live in it's quite a competitive environment here. There's lots of choices for people. But frequently we're finding that people have come along to us and they've checked us out first online. So they've gone to the website and they've looked at the video content and they've looked at the social media, and we're getting people turning up who've been following us for for weeks or
Yeah.
months, who finally pluck up the courage to come along in person. So that digital output is really important, not just to connect with people who aren't going to come to church, but also to, I guess, tempt people in, to give them an insight. I love what you're saying about including the outside as well. We've probably got a bit lazy with that recently. We're doing that less. I think just because we've got into a routine.
And that's something that's a risk for us all at the moment, isn't it? You know, churches naturally run on routines of, you know, Sunday services and things like that, but we're at risk of our digital output becoming routine as well. And I think that's we're at an opportunity to sort of step back and take stock and say, right, where are we getting our engagement? Is it in our video content? Is it in some of the stuff that we're doing that allows people to join, such as like Zoom in morning prayer and things like that? Or is it through we've got some WhatsApp groups where we keep in contact with not specific groups of people, so like our children and families. It's an easy way to communicate with a big group of people and things like that. We're at a point where we need to sort of step back, take stock. What have we got the capacity to carry on with going forward, and what's going to keep it fresh, what's going to keep people interested, and where can we start to now boost the calling of some of our other members of the church as they start to return, or maybe they choose not to return but they want to, like, not to return in person but they want to contribute in some way. How can we start to boost those sorts of, you know, wanting to volunteer, wanting to help? How can we train them up and things like that? We've reached that sort of point now.
Yeah, but we do morning prayer twice a week on Zoom and on Facebook, streamed sent to Facebook from Zoom, and that works really well because I have probably about 3 people who are regularly with me on Zoom. That's all, but then a whole bunch of people who drop in and out of Facebook.
And they're able to interact through comments.
Yeah, and they
like
interact, you know. This morning, lovely comments from Anne, who I don't think I've ever met, but joins in Facebook morning prayer regularly, and we pray for her husband, and she comments, and we have interaction, and it's great. So we're regularly doing that, and we do a weekly video service, so it's a 20-minute kind of cut down version of an Anglican service, I suppose.
That's similar to what we're doing.
But it's just it's me talking to camera. It's getting members of the congregation to do the reading to camera. It takes a little bit of organising because we're always forgetting to ask people. Yeah. You know, the plan is Sunday morning, just get somebody to do the reading for next week, so that we've got it in the bag. And sometimes we remember. Often we forget. Yeah,
it's a similar thing that we're doing.
And we built up this stock of hymns because David, our director of music, during lockdown, when we went on to meeting on Zoom, recorded loads of hymns and songs for us to use in our Zoom worship. So we're now, you know, we're using those in our weekly video, so that we have a reading, a short sermon, some prayers, and a hymn. It's great to just keep using what we've done. Yeah. So we've learned all these skills. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got the equipment, you know. Yeah, don't let it gather dust in the cupboard now. We bought the tripod, we bought the clip for the phone, and we've got the mics and things like that. So, yeah, we're making use of it still. And it doesn't actually take all that long to do this video. No, I think the thing that we do with that's been almost more productive than just producing it for our congregation is that we also post it on our local sort of village Facebook notice boards. So we get a lot of comments that come back from people that aren't congregation members. And so that means that we've got, as a sort of a church profile, as a team profile, we've got
quite a presence in the local village notice boards and things like that. And moving away from, you know, services and worship and things, what we've been able to do more recently is we're supporting some Ukrainian families that are moving to the area, but we've been able to use that contact with the wider community, and a lot of people interact with us to say, has anybody got donations that they can bring and drop off to the church? And we found that the response from outside our congregation, but from our parish community, has been fabulous. People have donated all sorts, and it's through building up that regular pattern of, we're here, this is us, this is what we've got to offer in terms of worship, but this is also what we're offering in terms of community, and come and join in, or if you don't want to join in, here's something that you can help and things like that. So I think that's been a real bonus, being able to build that presence rather than just being a building on a hill. Yeah. That, you know, people go to for weddings and baptisms and funerals.
That's brilliant. I mean, our situation here is a little bit different because we're city centre, and the community is so diverse, and we have made some inroads into sort of like Facebook groups and things like that, although the demographics, people don't tend to use Facebook as much around here because they're younger, and I guess one of the struggles that we've got is, I think, for us, one of the things about digital church is it's enabled people to stay connected even when they've moved away. So we had, you know, when lockdown first happened, we just were like, we're not going to be able to meet in church. Oh, what do we do? Right, we investigated very quickly, and like many churches, went to Zoom, and it was just fantastic, the relief amongst people that they when they joined on people. Zoom, and they're like, yes, we're here, we can see each other, it's fantastic. But it was great. But during the Zoom, when Zoom was our main service, we had people in that service who were people's parents whose church wasn't doing anything. We had people living in Germany who were joining, a couple who ended up stranded in Greece. Sadly, they were stranded in Greece on a Greek island during the first part of the pandemic. And they were joining us on Zoom. We had people, you know, all over the country joining us on Zoom. And it was great that people were able to stay connected. But what I'm noticing now, of course, is that actually that we're suffering, in a sense, from the other side, the flip side of that, because many people who've moved into our community who might, you know, look for a church are probably still connected with the church that they belonged to previously, and they're able to stay connected to that. So gradually people are returning to real church. Real church. I mean, of course, digital church is real as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But people are coming into the building more again. But we want to stay connected with that wider group. It's about people who aren't convinced yet. I mean, I've got a conversation later today with someone who's been following us and has emailed me and said, I'd like to come to church, but I suffer from some mental health anxieties. And are people who are depressed allowed to come to church?
And those are the sorts of conversations that you wouldn't necessarily have with regular congregation members, you know, and being open and being available and saying, you know, we're here, this is how you can contact us. I think that's the thing as well, just being it's a point of contact that's much more accessible than having to come to the building. I think knowing our context and knowing where you are and who you've got around will inform the best way to do digital church. So one of the projects that I took on whilst I was in Bury was that I had to do an evangelistic project as part of my college course, and I wanted to try and reach a younger demographic. The people of the age group that I particularly want to interact with they wouldn't choose to use Facebook, we're millennials, we use Instagram. So I went down that route, and I thought, that's where I want to be. So I was doing something, a weekly thing where I posted some questions on through Instagram stories, and then at a certain time I'd scheduled and advertised it through this that we would have an Instagram live, and it was me in conversation with somebody else, and I did that, and it was over a course of sort of five or 6 weeks, and there were different questions and different bits of scripture to focus on each week, and I found that the interaction with that was really good, and there were some of the people that I expected to be there, the really strong church supporters, but there were also others. So I think that's something else to be aware of, and some people might sort of shy away from and say, I haven't got the skills, or I don't want to have to learn a whole new platform or new algorithms and things like that. But actually finding the right people for whom actually it's much easier for them to use Instagram in our congregations and say, well, can you help? It's not my natural sort of habitat, it might be yours, please could you? And I think that's part of what we're now at, when, as people return, as they start, we can say, have you thought, could you help us in this way? And it might be that we've got people in our congregation that didn't feel that they had anything to offer previously, because there's the group that do the tea and coffee, and there's the group that do this, and there's the choir and things like that. And they think, well, I don't want to do any of those things, but actually something like this could be a real way for us to draw somebody in and nurture almost a vocation to, reaching out and being missional and things like that. So I think knowing our demographic is really important when we're choosing our platforms and our content and what we're doing.
Well, knowing our demographic of our church community, but also of the community, and reaching beyond the church community.
Yeah.
And I mean, that what you're saying reminds me very much of our Heart Edge ethos, which is that often the church finds renewal from people on the edge, and maybe there are people on the edge of the church, people maybe even on the edge of our community, who might have something to give in the digital world, who might be that person that we might ask to help us do these, come along and help us do some Instagram live stories, and
and that's one of the ways that we can nurture as well, isn't it? We can nurture
absolutely.
Internally, we can nurture externally that way. Yeah.
So what would you be wanting to say to people?
We're at a point now where I think we're coming up to summer. Let's take a rest while things are a bit quieter. Let's take stock. As a diocese where there's a shift in how we organise ourselves, we've got new mission communities that are forming and things like that, and I know that's having quite an influence on the things that we're doing in Bolton and up in Turton, and we're at a point of review where you can step back and you can think, right, people are more comfortable to come back, people are more comfortable to get involved in person, but we've still got some that want to be connected because they're away, or that want to be connected because they're vulnerable, and there's still concern. And we don't want what we've done digitally to be just the thing that we go to in an emergency when we can't meet. It needs to now form part of our whole, part of what we're doing, part of our missional, part of our outward facing. So we need to review, think about what we've got capacity for, and then I think come September, come the autumn, when things start to go dark again, I think that's when we might see a bit more revival. Those that have maybe drifted away from some of the digital stuff will start to think, well, it's getting dark, I don't want to go out late at night, or I don't want to get up first thing on a Sunday morning. Maybe I will start to re-engage digitally. But I think for me, the one thing that I've always said it when I was teaching, and I'll say it to anybody that tries something new and they say, oh, I can't do this. Just try and keep trying and give it a go. And if you don't get it right the first time, practice makes progress, and you will learn something, and you will get better at it. We as a church at large, were not great at this when we first started. I don't know whether you were on you were doing church on Zoom the one Sunday that Zoom crashed, on a Sunday morning because the entire
Oh, yeah,
Church of England
Oh, yeah.
all tried
I
to log in,
remember
everybody
that.
went, "No!" So that happened, and that was right at the beginning. But since then, we've got better, and everybody's got better at it. You know, we've got things like people know if they're using a Zoom service that ideally you need a Zoom verger, somebody to let in the late people, somebody to plug a slideshow, things like that. Or you know that if you've got a Facebook group or Facebook Messenger, you could do with somebody that can respond to those things, maybe sort of, and filter them out to the right people and things like that. So, but give it a go. You know, we've all learned through the period that we've been in.
Yeah.
But don't let the equipment gather dust in
No.
the corner.
Yeah,
You know, make it part of what we're doing going forward.
Yeah, make the things work together. I mean, we've now, some of our activities have started up again. One of the most popular videos I've done recently is we did a short, less than 3 minutes video of our bell ringers.
Oh.
So we've now got the bells being rung again. You know, it's not been that long. We've got lots of noise complaints when they first started up again because people had moved into a new flat.
Yeah.
During a pandemic when the city centre was quiet,
Yeah.
and now there's like bells ringing. But anyway, we made a short video of Simon from the bell ringers explaining how it works and a bit of bell ringing happening, and just very short video, loads of likes, loads of hits, loads of and I've just done a similar one with the community choir, which is really taking off. Again, because people are now wanting to gather and sing together, which is brilliant. But a short video that tells people what's happening.
Yeah.
And it, it's great as a promotional thing, but it also builds that sense of community. Here's a church that's more than just talking to you about God, but it's a community, it's people interacting.
And it's more than Sunday then.
Oh,
it's not
absolutely.
just we're here on a Sunday, come to a service.
Yeah.
It's, well, actually, we are a church. We are a church, and we're a
Yeah,
church
yeah.
all the time, 24 hours, 7 days a week. We are a church,
Yeah.
and we're here. And we're not just here, 10 till 11 on a Sunday, doing a Sunday service. Come and join us. And it's about us being out there during the week, being visible at those times where they don't necessarily, some people wouldn't necessarily think that they're going to encounter the church or encounter God and things like that, but being there more of the time, beyond our Sunday services, beyond those things that people traditionally see as the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to say a big thank you to you for watching this video and for all the work that you've done developing your digital output in your churches, because so much fantastic content has been put out there. So big thank you to all of you. Big thanks as well to Eve and to James, who've been so supportive from the diocese and helped us think of new ideas and discover new resources. And
I would echo all of those, and the thing that I would add is thanks to the wider Church of England digital team, because some of the training and some of the webinars that they've offered through lockdown and continue to offer, sign up for their emails, they're really good. They're an hour of your time, and the things that you can take from them are really useful. But particularly locally, our own volunteers, those that have taken on new roles, James and Eve, and everybody that's doing little bits and that's helping and that's joining in.